Hey RATBAGGERS, it's Jade today with a tips guide, things I wish I knew and also some directions about disc unlocks. Some people may feel that's slightly spoilerific. I'm not going to go through every beat of the dungeon, but I do think it's worth knowing what discs unlock what kind of features, because then you can focus on things like base building or certain builds. I've got some pretty obvious general tips as well about base location, how to get certain upgrades for your tools, some special sneaky secret weapons, and a few extra ones. So make sure you watch all the way to the end, leave a like if you find it useful, and let's go. What I wish I knew earlier in Grounded 2. Just like the original game, base location is super important, but you will be able to move your bases. In fact, in the future on the roadmap, they've got plans that you'll be able to move literally your whole base in one go. But for now, pretty obvious, make sure you build close enough to one of the ranger stations, in the early stages at least. You're going to be back here more so than ever from the first game visiting field stations, because you need to go ahead and buy your upgrades for your Omni tool, as well as scan all the new resources that you get in. And in terms of good start location, you can't really go wrong than the big open space directly in front of the actual ranger station you first directed to. You have a few spiderlings and maybe a few larvae that go nearby but not directly into it, so I think it's a great location to build. But for me personally, I really liked this area directly in front of the snack bar as you emerge. There's some wooden slates holding up one of the actual foots, and pretty much you can place anything you want up here. The natural height already makes it hard if you're attacked by any orc creatures, which you will have lots of them raids. You've got immediate free access to food with the caterpillar respawning, getting lots of caterpillar meat eventually. And you're only a small way away from the ranger station. By the time you unlock pine needle base building and a few more things, you probably want to then move, but early stages I think it's one of the better locations. A big focus should be on upgrading your weapons and getting the unlocks, especially for your hammer, your shovel, and eventually tier 2 of these, including your axe. Tier 1 super easy to go ahead and get, the raw science needed is relatively low, and the resources to unlock some of this stuff is relatively easy. If you do need lots more raw science, make sure you're completing the ranger challenges, as these reward you pretty easily too. Once you do, don't actually stop, try and get Omni upgrades level 2, especially for your hammer and axe. For sure, some of this stuff is going to be more advanced and it costs a lot more raw science at 2k. But the quicker you get your tier 2 upgrades, the quicker you can start harvesting some of them tier 2 resources and really start progressing. Now to find some of the stuff you need, you definitely want to get hold of the resource scanner early doors. And it's pretty simple, follow the storyline until you're directed to go ahead and make some spike strips to defend against your first wave of orc attacks. Go and speak to Sloan straight after, and then you'll have the resource scanner or finder, and this way you're going to make life a lot easier finding things like the blueberries needed for your tier 2 upgrades. You'll find some of these on the picnic table again, which is a relatively early quest line. Otherwise there's even more available for you to go and get all the way to the southeast of the map. They are guarded by some orc bees, so make sure you've got some orc disruptor arrows perhaps, or just ready to take them on. And once you've picked up your first chunk, you'll be able to find even more. Although be careful, at the moment the map analyzer is a little bit odd. Some items are showing up all over the map when you go and scan them, others you have to be in that region. And of course some resources, especially bug parts, will be inside egg sacs, so you don't want to get confused with that. But doing this should help alleviate the whole grind for finding all the resources you need to get your upgrades like lingonberries and more. I am working on a guide already on how to get the upgrades as quickly as possible, so make sure you check out that for full one. But it's definitely worth noting that blueberries are tier 1 axe, lingonberries are tier 2. Also worth pointing out that milk molars are returning, giving you boosts to your health and stamina stats. At tier 1 you can break the white ones that you find around the map. These are especially going to be good for giving you that health boost, but if you want to get the gold ones, which increase how many stacks of resources you can carry, you're going to need a tier 2 hammer. Nice change is that you can access the milk molar menu now from your main menu and upgrade whenever you find any, instead of having to return to a ranger station. A big chunk of the game is finding the special optical discs, and some of them will start appearing on your map, but they don't explain exactly what rewards are which. And while I wouldn't like to necessarily spoil it all here, I do think the game needs a bit more direction so players kind of work out what is worth their priority first. If you head to the location marked as part of the story to retrieve a turbo disc underneath the decking of the snack bar, you get one of the first unlocks, which is pretty crucial. It is guarded by lots of cockroaches, but that's good because you're going to need them for your tier 2 axe upgrade, but also some maybe orc scorpions inside the tunnel itself, so be prepared. Obviously you'll find the optical disc inside and a lot more loot, so make sure you grab it. And don't miss out on the recipe to unlock the new scorpion pincers, or basically scorpion gauntlets. This is actually really easy to miss. It's this bit of paper next to the junk, the cryptic recipe. But they're pretty OP for early game and obviously really good for unarmed builds. And while we're here, it's worth pointing that out, that gauntlets will give or contribute to your unarmed mutation damage, whereas daggers and sickles will contribute to assassin. Even though they're all classed as dual wield, do take note of that. So once you return to the disc, you'll get the smithing station, and this is really important for giving yourself upgrades for your weapons and armour. Same as Grounded 1, although at the moment you're limited to upgrading only up to level 3, whereas the original game you could go up to level 5 before then needing better resources to go further. Also really crucial is getting the brat burst. It costs quite a lot of raw science, but if you've got some of these on you, and especially with your tier 2 hammer to get the spicy cha-cha needed, you can make some of these and you'll be able to get some really cool secret loot like the pinch whacker, which I've shown off in a separate video. Raw science grind, it used to be kind of grindy in Grounded 1, but in number 2 it's not so bad. You'll be able to pretty much buy everything relatively easy just by completing the main story quests and the ranger challenges. I still didn't bother buying any of the sign sets, reserving to save all of my raw science for stuff that I actually needed. Worth pointing out as well with the furniture unlocks, the grass side table is a storage cabinet. While the rest really doesn't serve much use other than maybe some lighting, they are going to be introducing the cozy system they had from the first game, which will give you buffs to your food and water intake while you're at home and some maybe other bonuses. I think it's worth buying the furniture pack alone just for the actual cabinet, as it's cheaper to make some of them and get a little bit more storage compared to having to go and find lots of acorn shells early game. If you're fairly new to Grounded, all that marble and quartzite you've been bashing, you can now craft it into the whetstone and plating, and this is what you're going to be needing to upgrade your weapons and your armour. Whetstone is for weapons and the marble is for your armour. You do get a good amount of this. Early game I felt like I was maybe not finding enough, but a big change is that it respawns in Grounded 2. There was only a limited amount in Grounded 1 and then you had to use bug parts and sap to make more. You still can do that in this game, but you will notice a lot of the rocks do respawn. I wouldn't necessarily save loads up. As soon as you've got them, go ahead and upgrade whatever you've got. And remember, they also repair your gear whenever you upgrade them. So it's always a good time to maybe do it when things are about to break, saving you on costs. If you still feel like you can't find enough though, then you may want to head and try and get the Spider Den optical disc, as this gives you the recipe for unlocking brittle plating, which you can then craft arm upgrades using just sap and grub hide. The cookery recipes that it also unlocks are pretty good as well, giving you the ability to run up the actual webs quicker without needing a spider mount, plus extra weak point damage. If you want to make your base look a bit nicer, curved base pieces are also unlocked with this disc. Spider Den is in the Pines area and it's a pretty dangerous place to go. There's a couple different entrances to the actual spider ant den and you pretty much find them at war with each other. If you manage to get a tier 2 spade upgrade, you can also pick up this unique Crimson Avenger sword, and it is worth pointing out that you probably need your ant buggy to get through some routes to get here. Definitely needs a full guide if you're struggling with this place, as it's really big. But you find the dead body with the disc inside where you find lots of eggs, so make sure you don't miss it. The ice cream truck disc unlocks the milk molar scanner, obviously really helpful and important if you want to get as many upgrades as possible. You also get the whetstone recipe so you can craft your own extra weapon upgrade rocks if you don't want to keep looking around the map. And just a little tip, there is also a special key you'll find on another body in the same big cavern inside the ice cream cart that'll open up a special chest where you can maybe earn some special sickles. Slightly annoyed that the game doesn't really tell you where to go, especially for the milk molar upgrades, as that would have been super useful in the first 12-15 hours I'd already spent exploring the actual park. So this is why I say don't really focus too much on the transmitters at first. You may want to try and get the discs, as these will really give you lots of better upgrades to help you in the rest of your journey. And it might seem pretty obvious, but you also get the fresh storage, which is a game changer as well, by going ahead and completing the ice cream cart disc. And again, I'll have a full guide on how to complete the ice cream cart area, especially as you're going to need more resources to keep the chill away. And I am kind of showing you guys how to maybe do these in relatively order, although you may want to try and do the ice cart instead of the spider den first. But next up is the toxic anthill chip, as this is going to give you a lot more stuff too. I'm going to spoil really what's in here, but again you'll find another dead body with the chip that you need. But just like a lot of the other dungeons, there are a couple different entrances. You've got an east entrance and I do believe a west entrance. The east entrance is a bit longer, but I actually found it slightly easier to go this way. It's east of the picnic table and slightly to the southwest of the big skateboard, right underneath one of the lamps. But yeah, I think this entrance is a bit better to go in here and try and get the chip. And of course, hopefully you worked out now, as long as you leave the cockroaches alone, they won't actually harm you, so just don't accidentally hit them. When you get back, you'll unlock fortified bases, and this seems crazy that this is locked such kind of against a tough maybe dungeon. But apart from that, the extras like the acorn stairs as well as the ladders may not be as useful, unless you're really into making your cozy house at home as well as showing off all your armors and stuff. Now, I don't really want to say too much about the last disc that you'll find, but effectively if you want an orb weaver mount, you do need to complete basically the storyline. Whereas a lot of the other discs that we just looked at are pretty much optional. The main part of the game is you now turning off these actual receivers. There is one final disc inside the final dungeon, which you'll find at Burgle Statue. And this will give you the ability to go ahead and get your orb weaver mount, which you can go to pretty much any time you want, as soon as it tells you to go and find one. In fact, I'm pretty sure you don't even need to turn off all of the receivers, only the two that are listed on the garbage can as well as the one on the picnic table. So if you've already got some decent armor or fairly confident in the game, you could head straight to the Burgle Statue after that. Look out for a guide for that though. It's pretty hard to get to that point, as the pathway is in and out of hedges and stuff and not always as simple. And speaking of mounts, you've seen me riding my ant buggy. Well, that's something you should get pretty early in the game. The first disc that you retrieve underneath the snack bar from the small anthill gives you the hatchery, so obviously you can build that. And then again, there's two entrances to the anthill that you need to go to. Actually go to the north one, which is on the path just here. This way you avoid taking on a orb weaver, and it's just relatively simple to go and get. Ants will ignore you as long as you don't come across any soldier ants. My best tips for this are to just get one actual soldier ant egg, which are orange, that you'll find in pretty much the bottom chamber. Although depending on what entrance you come into, there's actually two places where you can pick up ant soldier eggs. Hence why overall this ant tunnel is really confusing. Eventually you'll be able to chop through places like roots with your ant soldier. But if you do go down the northern one, it's relatively simpler. You can pick up the ant egg and just make a run for it. You will have lots of ants to deal with though if you haven't taken care of them on your way down. So it's up to you whether or not you try and kite them out of the anthill or take them down as you go into it, or try and run out of it. But you will have to deal with about 12 different ants while you're doing this. Anything that's going to increase your speed like Natural Explorer or maybe the aphid boots are always helpful. You might even want to consider having the hatchery nearby so that you can literally pop it in and then go and explore the rest of the anthill to go and get any more resources. But probably it is best to come back here once you've actually got your mount, which should hatch in around 12 minutes. And quicker still if you go ahead and sleep. Once you've got a mount and maybe you want to get more eggs for your friends so they can have their own, then yes, come back here, chop through the roots, get loads of upgrade rocks and be safe, because the ants will leave you alone as long as you are on your mount until you pick up the eggs. Also, with your actual mount, you'll now be able to pick up 2 of the eggs. You can grab one by pressing the Y button as well as the regular just X button to pick up an egg on your saddle. If you do get into combat, just be careful though, you will drop the one that's in your jaws. As you can see, it's relatively quick and easy, just running out of here on my mount, not having to deal with anything, and then I can simply go ahead and hatch more eggs. Just a few extra little tips now. Don't forget there's also new stat pages where you can really home in on your build to kind of build exactly what you want, whether it's critical hit or being a defensive tank. Check that regularly to see if there's any new trinkets or buffs you get from food that really increase it. And when it comes to some of the orc raids, if you actually don't want your base to be damaged, just make sure you run away as soon as you see the warning that it's about to approach. It does reset. I do believe the more that you explore different areas, if you stay in one place, it seems to go off a little bit more. There's a lot more variety in shields now. Some of them are better than others. If you're not great at parrying though, the actual ladybug shield that you can get is pretty good, as you can hold it rather than relying on perfect parrying, as it's a heavy shield. When it comes to combat against some of the creatures we've been looking at in this video, then I'm maybe making it seem pretty easy. I am someone experienced with grounded, and after a good few hours of maybe finding the game a bit tough in the early stages, I found the game start to get a bit easier, especially when I could upgrade my gear. It feels like there's definitely a bit more of a power maybe enhancement in this game compared to the original, where basically you feel OP with all sorts of different build sets. So I'm encouraging you to try out all the different weapons, whether it's dual daggers, some of the gauntlets, maybe the heavy two-handed weapons, or actually bows and arrows. A big change that some people don't like is that you can no longer block with a bow, but I find it amazing now that archery really does feel more powerful. Some creatures are going to have more resistance than others, like this is probably a bad idea to take on a scorpion with bows, as they take more damage via two-handed weapons. And that's something you should probably focus on. If you actually press the Y button when looking at a creature, of course it brings up some of its stats and shows its weaknesses and strengths. But nevertheless, the cheese strat of basically keeping your distance is always pretty viable for more dangerous creatures. And with the new dodge ability, it's even better that you can stay away from creatures that you may be finding it tough to beat. In fact, the dodge is something I think a lot of old ground players are really going to struggle with because they're just not used to using it. They'll be parrying a lot or blocking, but I definitely think it's worth investing in learning how to use it effectively. Do try and keep your buggies alive. If they do actually get completely knocked out and you don't revive them in time, they'll be sent back to the nest, and then that means you've got to wait a good few minutes for them before you can recall them. As you upgrade your gear, you'll also notice that some of it will start needing bug rubber to go ahead and repair, which is kind of good because it means less of the actual bug parts needed. But make sure you put a bunch of the repair materials for your armor and your weapons inside your buggy at all times. Especially for some of the dungeons that are quite tough to get through as they're quite big, including the last one. Definitely recommend you bring lots of repair materials for your gear or just another complete second set. If you're struggling to break through some of the buggy's defenses, make this tip. Go backwards while you're charging up your weapon. Notice a few times a lot of the buggies, especially things like scorpions and more, will go ahead and defend again, and then this way you can break it and also maybe stun them. I do find with the gauntlets, sometimes with smaller creatures, they're a bit more difficult to utilise, especially with two-handed weapons as well, where you need to aim down a lot more. With your buggies, they're meant to be able to resist different elements depending on what armour you've got. So if you're wearing a gas mask and you've got full protection, they shouldn't necessarily take any damage unless you jump off of them. However, I am finding that a little bit off. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and there's been a few times where buggy just won't actually go into a certain area. You will notice they can't go into places anyway, like the chilled zone or the campfire. But yeah, other places, they are meant to be able to withstand things like the toxic clouds a little bit if you've got a mask on. The game makes it seem like we're going to have a fast travel system with the pneumatic transit system that you can see, but it does look like this is only for certain places at the moment. I think maybe in the future they may unlock being able to travel between ranger stations, but not yet. So yeah, you're not missing out. You haven't maybe worked a bug or something. It just isn't something that's in the game just yet. There's a couple shortcuts you can unlock once you get to the final statue, but yeah, don't be too surprised if you still find lots of these places with the tubes not being able to access or use them. There's a bunch of trinkets you can craft as you find more resources and scan them at the resource analyzer, And there are other trinkets you can get by defeating enemies. In fact, pretty much every major group of enemy, things like scorpions, butterflies, cockroaches and more, have a special trinket that can drop from killing some of them. They'll usually give you buffs and bonuses, more sort of to do with that bug, but you can also get trinkets by harvesting certain pieces of candy, like the ice sweets or the cha-chas. So even if you've got lots and lots of cha-chas and candies especially, do make sure you are harvesting them still, so you got a chance of getting the trinkets. I've heard from people like CD Dinky, he got loads of them pretty easily, but then Paralyzer told us that he barely found one. I only managed to find 2 of the actual ice sweet trinkets and none of the others apart from a hot dog stopper, which allows you to not worry about food as it will continuously regenerate. These were a big deal in Grounded 1, especially once we got to New Game Plus. There was loads of them that you could get. But for now in Grounded 2, they're relatively simple. You've got just a chance of finding them from enemies and candies, or the basic ones that you'll be able to craft. For a lot of the environments, like the cold area as well as the campfire, smoothies are going to be your best friend. There are brand new smoothies and meals, but specifically the ones that help obviously combat temperatures are really good. The more bug parts you find, the more you'll unlock new recipes. And if you hadn't worked out, chocolate chips are the new way to make hearty smoothies. These give you an extra healing buff when you use them instead of grub sludge. And bubblegum still does the same thing, it makes smoothies abilities or effects last longer. Don't forget to use your resource scanner to find this stuff once you've got your first piece of chocolate or your first piece of bubblegum. Obviously the chocolate chips though, they generally only spawn in the ice cream cart so far that I've found. Now you will likely still need other pieces of gear and items to traverse some of these environments, but the cold one I managed to do it with just the actual mighty helmet and pretty much a smoothie and maybe a food item. The campfire though was definitely a different story, even with the full gear, especially the sizzling armor that you can craft. I was having real trouble staying cool. Obviously you can eat mints as well as the spicy cha-chas to quickly alleviate some of these, but you still may need more, like the cooling bandages, especially for the hot areas. And don't forget, an old one, you should see it in the mutations anyway, but if you eat some of the candies, it should unlock either the spicy pretty much defense or the fresh defense, which will also help you navigate some of these and also give extra damage with your status effects. Worth also noting, there are no ovens in Grounded 2 at the moment. This is how you used to make your globs that you would require to go ahead and upgrade a lot of your weapons, at least in the mid to late game stages. But in Grounded 1, they're not there at the moment. You can find certain globs in certain chests to only basically make one special weapon. But yeah, they're not added just yet. So you've only got the cookery to make your meals. It does mean that mushroom bricks and stuff won't be coming for a while, but they are on the roadmap in the future. And don't stop killing things until you've unlocked pretty much the mutation for that weapon set. While the game is in early access, the more that you carry on playing and unlock all the different mutations for different weapons and stuff, the easier you're going to find actually the next stages when they update and add more difficult creatures. I'm sure some of your favourite weapons you're already close to unlocking the level 2 or 3 levels for them, but it's probably worth focusing in on some of these, especially maybe some new weapons that you want to try out. Became a bit of a habit of mine of just zooming past on my buggy, and I was kind of missing out on some easy encounters just to get some of my stats up. As always, some mutations are always better than others. I can't really live without Cardio Fan normally. I like the Perfect Parry and I do like Natural Explorer, although it's hard to trigger the full level Natural Explorer at the moment because there are just not as many landmarks in the game so far. And use your buggy to harvest resources. Again, it kept happening to me that I would just go and use my axe until I realised that actually the buggy can chop through stuff so much quicker. It's still a bit rubbish picking things up, even with the gather mode. In fact, I found it easier to use the gather mode on an orb weaver than I did a soldier ant, which is kind of meant to be part of its utility. But yeah, try and use them to their strengths. There is customization in the game. You can customize your scabby as well as your omni tool. Sadly though, the customization is restricted to whatever your character is with their own unique styles. So you may need different parts from bugs and stuff, and this is something you might not find as there's only 2 locations you can actually do this. One inside the pine area, and you'll be directed to pretty much this place as part of finding a milk molar stash. And the second one is close to the burgle statue or the outside edges of it when you go up to the hedges. You can unequip them by coming back here if you really want just the plain look again. And a little FYI, if you hadn't worked it out, you can change your skins if you bought the Founders Pack by the options or settings menu before you start the game, I do believe. And last little tip, there is a few bugs at the moment where your bags might not be where you expect them to be when you die. I found that some of my bags are well off in areas that I can't access in upcoming update areas. Don't forget there is an option to go ahead and repair the game in options or pools menu, and then you can recall your bags, but you can only do this once for per game save. So if you've got multiple bags or you've done it once already and you've died and it's happened again straight away, save your game, load up the world again, and then use the recall option again. All bags that are lost should appear pretty much in front of the onboarding center when you first come out into the world. It's a great feature to have. I know there's still some issues with it at the moment though, but yeah, that's how it works. So if you can't get your bag back, even though you've tried it a few times, like I said, save the game, load up again, and then hopefully it'll work this time. And that's pretty much it. There's obviously lots more I could go in real detail about each creature or each one of the dungeons and areas that you need to go and get some of these discs and stuff, but that's all going to come in separate videos. Hopefully this has helped you try and work out a little bit. Like I said, some people might feel it's a bit spoilerish saying where some of the stuff is to get your unlocks from these discs, but I think it's just worth knowing because it's going to help you work out what you want to do first. And I've tried keeping story spoilers to a minimum as well. Just remember to check out the roadmap to see what's incoming in future, hence why you can't really get any tier 3 tools at the moment, although there are some tier 3 armors and weapons. And eventually we'll be able to harvest things like the sour wormholes, snail shells, and more tier 3 stuff. If you like this video, if you found it useful, leave a like, and I'll see you right back some more soon.